There it goes. Now.
All right, we're good to go?
We're good to go.
All right, well, I got 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for coming. First thing are the ground rules that you've all heard so many times, but silence your cell phones and don't interrupt other people, and you're being recorded. And wait until after presentations to make comments. There'll be a chance for public comment after Planning Commission members talk. I'll let people know when there's going to be time for public comment. So please hold off until that point. That being said, let me get a quick roll call. Planning Commission members. Alex, you're here.
Here.
Tim.
Here.
John.
Here.
I know that Andy was going to be absent. I can't imagine that he canceled his trip to come. Tony, you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And who do we have from the Monti project?
John Beagle.
Jason Smealand.
Robert Kravitz.
Okay, and how about Green Top?
Hi, this is Alex Hughes from the Crossroads Group. I think we have a couple more people waiting to be let in for Green Top.
Okay.
They're just coming in.
Okay, thank you. And I saw we have Supervisor Collingwood and Supervisor Sherman with us. All right, well, let's keep moving here. First item on the agenda is the approval of the March meeting minutes. Do we have any corrections or concerns with the minutes?
This is Alex. I have none.
This is Tim. I have none.
John, I have none.
All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve?
I so motion.
John, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. I have one announcement before we get into things. I don't know if anyone had heard that past Planning Commission member Frank Shimandera passed away recently.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I was shocked and very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I heard that at church on Sunday.
Okay, yeah. So there is a service tomorrow. I think there's the calling hour at 10 o'clock, and then the service is at 11 for anyone that'd be interested. It's down at St. Agnes in Sellersville. So keep Frank and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Okay, moving forward, we're going to get into the Monti Beagle land development. Rob, I heard that you were going to do the presentation. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, I'll
All
start
right.
it off, and Jason will hop in after I start the presentation. Good evening. My name is Robert Kravitz, and I'm counsel for the applicant ER Monti Auto Services LLC. With me virtually is Jason Smealand, professional engineer for the applicant, and John Beagle, a representative of the applicant. As you're probably familiar, the property is located in a VC Village Commercial Zoning District. The property contains an existing non-conforming use, namely an automotive repair shop. The automotive repair shop specializes in repair and restoration of classic automobiles, and my understanding is it's sort of the latter stages of restoration just prior to the vehicles being sold. There's also a residential home on the property, and there's an existing pole barn on the property that is used to store the classic automobiles. The existing pole barn on the property was the subject of a zoning application, which was granted some years ago. Tonight, we're here before you proposing preliminary final land development of two identical pole barns, similar to the one that's already constructed. This project was previously before you at the end of last summer, beginning of last fall, for a sketch plan. At that time, we received favorable feedback from this body on the plan we are proposing tonight. Since that meeting, the applicant has obtained zoning relief for expansion of that non-conforming use that I referenced earlier, and a variance to permit accessory buildings, namely these pole barns, to be built in excess of 18 feet. And my understanding is they're going up to 21 feet. We're now here before you regarding the applicant's application for preliminary final land development approval to develop these 2 pole barns on the property. We've received a review letter from the township engineer, Wynn and Associates Incorporated, dated March 2nd, 2022, reviewing the application and the proposal. All of the comments in the review letter are either will comply or will be addressed to the satisfaction of the township engineer. So just to reiterate, we're requesting recommendation from the Planning Commission for preliminary final land development approval. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Smealand, our engineer, to add a little more detail. And both of us are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Rob. Jason Smealand, Lenape Valley Engineering. Yeah, and Rob did a good job of giving the overview of the project. Like you said, we had favorable comments from you before we went to the zoning hearing board, and we made it through the zoning hearing board. And again, all the items are will comply except for a couple of things that I want to touch base with from the review letter, and really just a few things. And Rob, if you don't mind pulling up that aerial plan.
Sure. You should be able to see it now. Oh, sorry. I think it's loading. There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a kind of a aerial taken from a kind of far out view. You can see what's around us. We got the boat storage place across the street, and we're kind of that goldish building, kind of right there where the cursor is. Just give you a little bit of context. And of course, if we were at the township building, it'd be right down the street. So Rob, if you want to flip to the next one.
Sure.
And this is the plan that we're proposing. So you can see the existing auto shop out in the front at the corner of Ridge and Altmont. There's a single family house. It's kind of hard for me to see from what I'm looking at, but single family home is also right there out on Ridge Road. And then we kind of have the gold building, which is the pole building that was recently installed. And then the 2 buildings that are in gray, which will be nearly identical to the pole building that's in the front, only just slightly wider and slightly longer. They're just under 5,000 square feet each. Now, a couple of things that we wanted to get your input, or at least just confirm with you, are the buffering requirements in the VC district. We're required to have a type 5 buffer. In this case, we have residential properties next to us that we're primarily concerned about protecting. And along the property line, you can see there that we have a row of arborvitaes. There's about 45 of them there that would create a solid row of arborvitaes, a solid screening. And then also with that, on the outside of the arborvitaes, we have a 6-foot high privacy fence that would be PVC and white privacy type fence. So we're providing a buffer that's above and beyond what the ordinance requires. I guess the thought is any additional buffering needed, and what we think is no, because we're surrounded by woodlands, which will all be preserved. So you can see all around us, all the woods, most of the woods around us, except what we need to install our stormwater and our buildings will be preserved. In addition to that, we have some shade trees, which would be deciduous that we'd be installing. So I guess I kind of want to get your thoughts on the buffering and the way the comment is written in the review is we just want to make sure that you believe that like we do, that the buffering we're proposing is adequate for this project.
All right. Steve, do you have any initial input aside from your comment in the letter? Steve?
You're muted, Steve. You got to unmute yourself, Steve.
Yeah, I realize that.
How many of these do you do?
Too many, but I make the same mistake every time. So I'm not learning. I was too interested in trying to get my ordinance. That was the problem. Yeah, I don't have much to add. They are providing the fence and the arborvitaes, which
Right.
is in addition to what would be required. Now, it's not along the whole property line, but it is significantly along the part of the property where there's proposed development. So, I guess it would be, just what are the feelings of the planning commission on that extra buffering?
Yeah, I mean, I support the effort there for sure.
And as you can see
All
where
right,
they wrapped
good.
around the back too. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but the fence will extend. The fence is the blue line on this plan, and it'll extend partially around the corner. There you go. You can see it now.
That's correct. It's kind of a purple line there. Kind of makes a 90-degree bend and goes parallel to the backs of the building. That way, even if you can see it through the trees that are remaining, it's still providing some buffering, but not along the property line where the trees already are. It just seemed to make more sense to buffer it closer to the building itself.
Is there any woodland between your fence and the dwelling that you're trying to protect there? It's hard to tell from the area.
There's some
There are,
scattered
a
trees
few
through
trees.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a 30-inch maple, 24-inch maple, some kind of 10-inch tree, but they're actually on the neighbor's property, not on our
Right.
property ourselves.
And that's going to be a white PVC privacy fence, you said?
Yeah, that's correct.
Have you talked
Yeah,
to the neighbors about that?
Well, it was what we presented at the zoning hearing board, and I think
Okay.
I'm pretty sure almost all the neighbors are there. So I'm guessing if they're not here tonight, they probably knew what we were proposing, and it was exactly what we were presenting at the zoning hearing board.
Okay.
I just went back into the ordinance just to double check the type 5 buffer, and that's requires a 4 to 6 foot high fence. A landscaped area. So they're providing the fence and they're providing landscaping in addition to it. So it seems to meet the ordinance requirements.
Any other comments from planning commission members?
This is Tim. I'm good with that.
Alex, same.
John, I'm okay.
All right. Well, it sounds like we're okay with your buffering efforts.
Good. Well, we were hoping you would be, and we had kind of talked to you a little bit about it before, so so you're consistent, and we were consistent. That's good. But I think the next thing I want to jump are the waiver request, because everything else is a will comply. Anything in there that you want to talk about, we'll have to talk about. But of course, we're requesting the waiver for existing road improvements. We're also requesting a waiver for street trees. In this particular site, right where the auto shop is and our parking is located, there's really no room for street trees up there. And additionally, even if there was room, it would be really difficult because we have the intersection of Altmont that we need to keep open for sight distance, and of course our driveway accesses. So preserving all the trees that are in the front that are near the single family home, but we're really not changing anything. We're not taking any trees down along the frontage. So we're just requesting a partial waiver. Of course, the existing street trees on Altman and Ridge would stay, and they would meet those requirements. We're requesting a waiver from a traffic impact study. Put a little bit of information into the narrative, but we're not increasing the number of people that'll be using the site. Again, these buildings, storage of cars, not an increase in people working here at the site. Didn't seem to make sense to have any kind of traffic study. We're not proposing any kind of revision to the entrances or anything like that. And no traffic problems that we know of in this area. Next one I do want to talk about is the shade trees. So the West Rock Hill Township ordinance for shade trees requires that 35% of your parking areas and aisleways be shaded. In this case, it's a little bit challenging because a lot of our parking is up in front. really no opportunity for planting too many additional trees up there. So we've provided shading along the new driveway entrance, and there's some existing trees that will stay. But when I do the calculation the way that you're supposed to in the ordinance, I come up that we're doing 22% shading when 35 is required. So there would be a couple extra trees that, that we would need to meet that requirement, but we can't really plant them in a place where there's shade. So I just put the extra trees in spaces where I thought it made sense to enhance the buffer. So we're still getting all the trees. It would just be a partial waiver because we're at 22% rather than 35%. And because of where our stormwater beds are located, it's just difficult to get these trees in a place where they're not going to be problematic to the existing facilities, or they just can't be there because of the stormwater facilities. So
Jason,
just wanted to
those extra,
get your thoughts on that.
I'm sorry, Jason. The extra trees are those shown to the rear of the back building. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. All the ones that are along the driveway entrance, they're all required and they're counting as shade trees. And then there's 4 of them that kind of wrap around and go to the back, and they would be the ones that we need to plant. We would need by the ordinance requirement by the numbers, and that's where we're planting them, just not shading the parking lot.
And there's no way to get any trees in the shade that parking area.
No, because we have a grass strip out in the front, but it's in the right of way, and it would be in the sight distance lines. And then there is a tree, and actually, I didn't count it. There's an existing 30-inch maple tree up in the front at the front parking area. That'll remain. And then there's trees that are kind of on Altman that will stay, but there's not anything close to there. I mean, the best we could do is maybe provide one kind of over in the corner on Altman, but that whole frontage seems pretty nice to me the way it is. We think that kind of my thought was, over time we'll get those the buffering plantings growing, and then over more time we'll get these kind of nice what do I spec'd here? They are bear with me one second. They are red oaks and maples. As they grow up over time, they'll grow at a higher level and providing some screening. So, our goal was to provide those trees over where the residential people were, where they're needed the most.
Isn't the purpose of these for cooling off of the parking lots? The shade trees?
Yeah, that's
more for that than buffering, correct?
That's correct. They are for.
We've run into several properties where we couldn't fit all the trees in the parking area for one reason or another.
Right.
So they're proposing, to add them as buffer trees instead of what the extra trees would be required.
In a typical parking configuration, rather than putting very strict requirements on parking aisles and things like that, islands, you kind of control it with your shade trees. So what we end up, if we have a more conventional parking lot, with rows of parking, that ends up forcing you to do grass strips in between parking aisles and then islands and peninsulas. In this case, we don't really have we don't have those kind of configurations, to be able to accomplish it. So it's a little bit different application than your typical parking lot.
Right. All right. Any input from the planning commission members?
This is John. The only thing I could say is I think if you planted any more trees in the front area, you'd probably wind up cutting them down within 5 years because they'd just be in the way.
Chris, do you think we should consider some of Hal's suggestions regarding walking trail access before we get into the waivers?
I would probably agree with that. Yeah.
Hey, I have one other thing quick before we get into that. So being that this is in the VC, the waiver for curbs and sidewalks, I mean, this would be the main thoroughfare through the VC. So if at any point in time we're going to start, you know, planning like a village center, I would think sidewalks here would be somewhat key.
I agree with that.
Is that something that the fee in lieu could be held in escrow for future installation or something of curbs and sidewalks, or how would that potentially work? Because this is where a sidewalk eventually would be needed, especially on Ridge Road, not so much on Almont, right on Ridge.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Greg, what is there a way to escrow the waiver fund, or?
The problem with escrowing the waiver fund is depending on when you want to put it in, inflation goes up and we might not have enough money to put it in. If you're looking to start, I would either suggest putting in the sidewalks now. You'll never escrow enough money 10, 15 years down the line to put it in.
Okay. So the fee in lieu is basically the cost to do the work, correct?
Correct. We add up what the improvements are, and you can either put it in or give the township a fee in lieu of, but that does not go for your future sidewalks. For this, I would, if you're looking for sidewalks, I would ask the developer to put it in. Especially
I'm just saying we made the village center and this is the village center. So if anywhere sidewalks are going to be eventually needed or used, it would be here. I mean, I get it out in rural areas where houses are being put in, things of that sort, but I mean, this is the village center.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to bring it up myself. And if they don't go in now, how would they go in the future, and how would they be funded?
Right.
Well, yeah, I agree. You're right in the middle. You're right in the heart of the village center there, and.
But I realize there's none there now, and I get that. But at some point, it's got to start, right? So
you would think, unless the village center never catches on, things remain the same. But I would think this would be a key starting point.
Just my thought.
Yeah, that's a thought I agree with.
Yeah, I agree too.
What's your thoughts, Jason?
So the only thing I would say, and it's kind of been this problem with this area of the township forever, because it's been zoned village center for my whole career. And, you know, I've looked at projects or heard of projects up in this area for, you know, basically the whole time I've been an engineer. And, you know, the problem with this area is the lack of public water and sewer. You can actually see that as a result of what we're proposing here. So the village center allows, you know, you can disturb up to 80% of the woods. You can put 75% impervious coverage. And here we are with our plan, you know, at 22%. And you know, the thought is that, you know, if you start requiring, you know, if we're able to provide the development that the village center supports, then we're able to support those types of improvements. But right now, my thought is that the village center, at least for this particular property, can't support those kind of improvements, nor does it need it. Not to say that it won't need it in the future, but right now it doesn't. And we're developing it accordingly because, you know, we're not maxing this out in any way, shape, or form. You know, this is about as minor as you can get. So I would say placing the burden of the curbs and the sidewalks at this time on us with this development would be a very large burden for this particular project, or any project really, until the public utilities become available. And then at that point, then you'll see everything going, and you'll see this whole area develop. But until then, I think it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, I can somewhat agree with that. And you don't quite know where everything's going to be, you know, sewer-wise, road-wise, et cetera, if they widen the road. And that's why I said about some type of escrow situation. So then the question would be, if we had the fees in lieu of in some type of escrow, obviously, Greg, like you said, it's not going to keep pace with inflation, especially the inflation we have now. But there's something there. And then could you deed restrict it, Steve, to say any future improvements or sale of the property would require the installation?
Well, we could always, yeah, we could record restrictions against the property. You know, with or without funding is always the question of, so you say the future person has to do it, but he has no money to do it.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. If you have something here in the form of the fee in lieu of at the time of the development, and then somehow require that, you know, in the future it's done.
If you look at, I was looking at Google Earth while we were talking. If you look at that intersection where Ridge Valley Road comes to Ridge Road, the other three houses on that intersection are almost right up against the road. So assuming at some point in time, if all this development goes in, PennDOT's going to want to widen Ridge Road a little bit. There'd be no room left for any other sidewalks. So you're talking about putting a sidewalk in front of this property that goes from nowhere to nowhere.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm not necessarily saying to install the sidewalks. I'm just saying to make sure we provide for the future installation if at some point in time that would be a requirement. Because quite honestly, in the future, you know, in a village center like this situation, I mean, you're going to be like, those houses might not be there. It might be a Rite Aid. It might be, you know, I mean, who knows? I'm just saying there's a good chance if it's a village center, it's the center of town. So my only point, I agree, John, it probably isn't appropriate to actually put the sidewalk there, but just to make sure that we have this established, that it be put in the future.
No, I like your idea. I mean, that's good thinking. I think that's, at this point where we're at, I think it makes a lot more practical sense than actually putting the sidewalks in now.
Right. And I'm not advocating that we do that because, yeah, there's a whole lot of other situations that need to be accommodated for, and you don't want to just put them in and rip them up. But I'm just saying for somehow to, you know, ensure that this is, you know, an area that would potentially need them going forward.
So I think
did we on the Kratz plan make them show future sidewalk on the frontage of the property?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, I think we did do that there.
Yeah, I remember that too.
That was, you know, a similar idea of.
Yes.
We'll be dedicating the, you know, the right of way there. So, you know, the frontage will be available if the sidewalk comes through. Or the, you know, the area for the sidewalk would be available.
And on a Kratz subdivision, how did we word that? You know, we have the right of way on the plan for sidewalk, but is there anything about funding for it?
Quite frankly, I don't remember. I try and look quick while we're talking.
I think, if my memory is right, that we collected a fee in lieu of, and we had them show it on the plan for a future sidewalk, but we didn't escrow the funds anywhere.
I believe we got some fees, but let me see if I could find the approval letter quick to.
Yeah, I said I think there was a fee in lieu, but I don't think we escrowed the fees.
Right.
I'm not sure if there was an additional restriction recorded against the property. That's what I'm interested in too.
Right. I thought that there was a deed restriction on it then, but could be wrong on that.
All right. Well, in the meantime, Alex, you wanted to talk about walking trail? You're muted. You're muted.
Still muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yeah, I just thought it might make sense to talk about it now since it did impact this property.
Right.
I don't know, is Hal on?
Hal, are you on with us? He was on.
He is on.
I mean, if we're talking about trying to get him to put a right of way through there, and it's going to delay this project.
He might be having technical.
There we go.
He is.
Yeah,
There you are.
No, like I said, just freeform or harebrained idea. Since I'm familiar with the area from riding a bike around here, the problem is the sidewalk on the south side of Ridge Road. If you're coming from the township building, you basically end up walking across Art Walter's porch, walking across this location, walking across the front porch of the corner house there on Almont and Ridge, then you end up walking through Fasagio's front porch. If you're going to try to get a sidewalk on this side, get a little bit more space on the north side. And it just occurred to me that we do have a developer who owns a big chunk of, or now owns a big chunk of property behind the houses on Ridge Road. That might be a way of getting a trail instead of having it go along sidewalks on Ridge, try to connect up on the Almont stub. Whether there's enough space to, instead of sidewalks, put some kind of walking trail so you could either scoot along the township's driveway by the garages and either find a way of sneaking behind this or sneaking in front of it. But that's probably going to be more effective than trying to walk along Ridge Road with all the really heavy traffic. That was just basic idea of, okay, what other layouts are there that might work? Using the apparent, or the guys who own, knowing that there's a proposal or there's an interest in developing the area between Ridge Road and 309 bypass north of Almont. So
how did it impact this property?
Well, the initial just sketch was, okay, could you run something behind the property, or could you run something up Augustine and then just do a trail along that edge, assuming that in the future you'll be able to get some kind of connection over to the Select Properties holding companies, the big lot behind Fasagio's, behind the machine shop, and behind the other projects, which would allow you to have a connection between James Memorial Park and the sidewalk network for Grandview Hospital, and connect up to the sidewalks, and then have a connected walking trail over to Holiday House and then down into the main portion of Sellersville. So thinking of an alternate, is there any alternate way of having access for walking and bikes, which isn't a sidewalk along Route 563? Since I live on 563 and we're 10 feet away from the road, and PennDOT driver is setting a personal best of putting 40 pounds of snow back up on my third floor roof and taking the Christmas decorations off the front door, you know that it's not the best location for a relaxing walk. So that's the idea.
So you were thinking along the back edge of the property for that access?
Yeah, we're just brainstorming. Either is there space along that back edge, which does have a lot of area, looking at the setbacks for Almont and Ridge, even if it were just, instead of a sidewalk, laid out for a future bike path along both of those, with the idea that maybe we can connect up to the Select Properties if and when they eventually develop. If not, then you still have to see about getting past that hill and those 5-6 homes on the east side of Ridge Road, 563 between Almont and Lawn, because they're all right up hard against the road. It's really not much space to put a sidewalk.
But isn't the back of this property still landlocked with other properties around it?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's you know, I was just thinking that too. Is that the back of our property? We get from any of the roads. We had to cross through other people's property to get to us. So yeah, I know what Hal is saying about the interconnecting, and I would totally agree. It's going to be hard to get sidewalk along Ridge, and looking at other paths is a good idea. I'm just not seeing on this particular property how we would fit into that puzzle in a productive way anyway.
Well, the main thing that I was thinking of, many years ago, I worked on the Perkiomen Trail as my first summer of law school project. And a lot of that was, how do we lay out a trail to get through here, because we no longer have the right of way for the railroad. We need to get this working. So I know there are situations where we have, where Montgomery County just condemned an easement to put a trail across something. They have worked with, can we do some kind of fee in lieu when you get subdivided? Because yes, some of these properties are big enough that it's VR. Eventually something may happen with them, but you want to at least do some planning to figure out what could you do. Now on this location, if it's simply the easiest way of getting across Ridge Road from the park will probably be once there's an actual stoplight at the current school entrance / township building entrance / park entrance, and then follow the township driveway, because the township driveway pretty much lines up with the back edge of this property. So it would be a fairly straight run. You just cut down the township driveway and then cut across, and then hopefully you'll be able to get over to here, maybe and then onto Almont, possibly getting a trail like they've done along the upper portion of the 309 bypass right away, which isn't used. But that's probably going to be, it's probably going to be easier having a trail next to the 309 bypass, but having it 30 feet below you rather than being 3 feet from 563.
So how are you suggesting just write something into this project to give a right of way for a trail at the back end of the property?
Yeah, whether it's an option for an easement that you can exercise sometime in the future. That's something that we had done for a couple of properties for the Perkiomen Trail and the other connecting trails. Is we aren't sure which way we're going to go, so we'd like to have a choice of, we'll put the trail on the front or we'll put the trail on the back, or put the connection on the front, put the connection on the back, and then you find out which one is going to work and which one is less objectionable to the property owner. Because it's not going to happen anytime soon, but you want to at least try to think through what might be happening. And especially since there's that nice big area with plenty of trees and a fair amount of screening where you're not going to be bugging anybody.
So we'd be looking to ask these fine folks if they would not be opposed to putting a right of way for a walking trail on the rear of the property line there.
I think we're talking the rear property line plus the property line that goes out to Almont Road.
Right. Gotcha.
Yes.
And what are we thinking? Like maybe a 15-foot, 20-foot easement along there, or potential easement?
What do we do for Green Top there?
I thought that was 15 or 20. I can't remember. Let me check real quick.
Yeah, a 20 would be, ideal. Give you a little more elbow room to go around some trees and, meander through the woods.
Green
20
top
is what we
says
had at Green Top. Sorry, Tim.
What was that, Alex?
I said 20 is what we have in Green Top right now.
Gotcha.
No, then if I could just one time in, as you said, eventually, if sometime in the future this becomes a Wawa, then having a trail that connects directly over to the park rather than having to walk along 563 would actually be a benefit for them further down the road.
So
Well, I guess
The
what
other
you're
thing I'm thinking is that might provide realistically better connectivity than saying sidewalks out there.
So are we asking for both, or are we asking for either or?
Why? I think you need, as in the rear line and the eastern line there.
Well, the around the the rear and the side for a walking trail, and also sidewalks along Ridge Road, or is the walking trail in lieu of sidewalks on Ridge Road?
Good question. I mean, without knowing how this village could be configured, I would hate to cough up the sidewalk to lose that opportunity for sidewalk.
Well, that would still be within the ultimate right of way, right?
Yeah, you would have the right of way to put in sidewalk in the future if it was dedicated with this project.
Right.
So I think the only thing we'd be giving up would be, if we were not to pursue that, would be the fee in lieu of for sidewalks, which may not be sufficient to do sidewalks anyhow when the time comes.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Well, we were just discussing earlier that if we collect a fee in lieu of in 10 years or so, there's not going to be enough money to cover doing the sidewalks at that point. Now, it's still better than nothing, but that was just my 2 cents on that one.
Right. No, I probably know. I thought you were suggesting not taking a fee in lieu of. I didn't see Greg. I didn't see his eyes light up, so that's why I wondered what you had said. Well, how do the property owners feel about all this discussion?
So, yeah,
I think I can speak on this, Jason. I think, without discussing it with my mother-in-law, I mean, we're certainly willing to do certain things, but I think it would definitely be burdensome that I would. It's got to be one or the other, to mandate that I do both. I think that might be problematic.
Yeah, it's also going to delay your process here.
No, I understand that, but we went from discussing a fee in lieu of to discussing a fee in lieu of escrowing. Now we're talking a walking trail and easement. I mean, what exactly are we discussing? I mean, what is the plan?
Well, I think we're trying to keep the options open for having walkability through the village center.
Okay.
Without trying to be overly burdensome on you.
No, look, I mean, we're certainly cognizant that, you guys at some point in time want to try to do public water, want to try to do public sewer, and that, you know, the option of sidewalks are on the table. But I think what the gentleman had said there in reference to the walking trail is that to be quite honest with you, I think we're discussing putting sidewalks on the wrong side of the road. I mean, up from my property going north, you couldn't do it with the way the home's set up against the road. So I guess what I'm asking is what are we discussing? We went from fee in lieu of to a fee in lieu of to escrowing to a walking trail. We're talking about deed restrictions at this point.
We're talking it through.
Okay.
Yeah. Steve, do we have those easements on Ridge Valley Road for that Clay Heckler development?
Yes. Yeah, the original connection over to Lawn Avenue was envisioned to come out through the park property out to Ridge Valley Road. And then we have an easement through the side of those 4 lots that Clay Heckler built, which gets us then just short of Lawn Avenue.
So we're almost to Lawn Avenue with our easements already from the park.
On that route, yeah, on the upper side of the bridge, correct.
Yeah, that goes out to the hospital property, right?
Yeah, I believe it backs up to that
Right.
property of the hospital block. And there's one little missing piece right there at the S curve, you know, to get from the park to Ridge Valley Road. And this, you know, while it definitely is an alternate, but it would require a lot of, you know, other offsite easements to make this ultimately work.
I would be more apt for the sidewalk than the trail, and realizing that existing houses there make it next to impossible to put a sidewalk on that east side of Ridge Road. But again, this is assuming those houses aren't there. This is for the future. So that was my point with the whole thing.
It is likely to anticipate if it were going to be developed, you know, if public water and sewer were there and it was developed commercially, that some or all of those houses would no longer be there. They'd be redeveloped into a commercial use.
Right. Right. That's what I'm saying. Down the road, this probably isn't going to look like this. So we should plan for it now. So I would be more opting for the sidewalk option than the trail option, especially since you said we already have 3/4 of the trail over to Lawn Avenue done anyway.
Anyone else?
This is Alex. I'm fine going either way. I just figured it was something that kind of warranted discussion at this point if we're trying to figure out which way we wanted to go with that.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, to get to Almont Road, we'd need an easement from the western neighbors of this property, correct?
Yes.
Off of what is that road?
Augustine,
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to cross Augustine.
And then cross that.
Cross there. Then you have to get the other easements for the property owners back there to get back to select properties. So,
right.
And I don't want to burden Mr. Beal either. I'm not trying. That's not my point. It's just future planning is what I was getting
Yeah.
at.
No, I get it.
And I did have the opportunity while we were talking to find the approval from Kratz.
Yeah.
There was no deed restriction placed on the property. There was a contribution in lieu of sidewalk, and I believe we showed the future sidewalk on the plan. My recollection is we wanted to show that so that those people buying the lots knew that there was the potential for sidewalk.
Yeah, I remember going that way, yeah.
So there wasn't a deed restriction or any quote unquote escrowed money, but there was fee in lieu of funds contributed to the township.
Okay. I remember there was discussion about the deed restriction. I wasn't sure if we actually went through with that or what, but
yeah, we did not.
Okay.
All right. So where does that put us? At this point, I'm inclined to agree with Tim. You know, armed with the information, we do have the easements on the north side of the ridge. And you know, realizing if this town village center is ever going to come to fruition, there's going to be a lot of changes with properties that, you know, if these properties go commercial, the layout is not going to be what we're looking at now. So sidewalk is a possibility to get out to Lawn Avenue if things are reconfigured, as in demoed and rebuilt with commercial properties. So at this point, I'm ready to circle back and say, yeah, I'd approve the waiver for fee in lieu of for sidewalks and move forward.
This is Alex. That's fine with me.
John, I'm okay.
This is Tim. I'm okay with that.
All right. Well, there was a lengthy discussion to get back to where we started, but it was a good discussion. So thank you. All right. So we're all right with the first waiver. The second was the street trees. How does everyone feel about that? I don't have a problem with that.
I'm okay with it.
This is Alex. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, this is Tim. I'm fine with that as well.
Okay. How about the traffic impact? I don't have an issue with that. Doesn't seem like they're going to generate any more traffic there.
I agree.
Same.
Tim, agreed.
Okay. And the shade trees, we had a good discussion on that. I'm fine with it.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the way they used them in the back then.
Yeah. I was happy to see them replace them somewhere else.
Same.
Jay, what's the last one? This was the preliminary. Oh, so this is something that we kind of just assume with plans, isn't it? We had this with.
Yeah, you really don't issue a waiver of that. At least historically, you haven't. It's just the plan is. You feel comfortable with the plan is advanced far enough. You granted a preliminary final approval.
Right.
Recommendation.
All right. So would it be appropriate now to vote on the waivers?
You do have one person that's a neighbor that probably wants to give public comment before you.
Oh,
vote.
I'm sorry. Who was that? I'm sorry.
Cheryl Kagasi.
Cheryl, are you with us? Cheryl, go ahead. You can unmute
your mic. It's at the bottom center to the left. If you can't unmute your mic, you can send me an email. Or you can call in by phone.
Do I need to open the queue? Does that help?
No. No. There she goes. Oh.
Nope. Oh, there you are. Oh, you were. Oh my.
I don't know what's going on here.
There you go. Oh.
Oh.
No? I don't know.
You're on for a second. Whatever you're doing, you're on for a second.
I know. I'm hitting the button.
Yeah, just click on it once. You don't have to hold it.
I did.
Oh. That's it. We're going back to in-person meetings.
Oh, crap. I don't know.
You can call the phone number.
What's the... Okay.
It was in the email I sent you.
Yeah.
It seems like when you're talking, you're fine.
Who, me?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. You keep going in and out.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You've got an auto mute going. Just keep talking.
Okay. I'm sorry. What was the question now? It's okay with the fencing and the arborvitae. I'm still not happy with this. regardless of what he's putting up. To me, this is village center, and I don't think it should be changed. And I spoke my piece at the zoning board meeting, which everybody approved. I lived here our family owned this land for over 60 years. And now this stuff is coming into village center, which is not appropriate. So I'm very disappointed, but there's nothing I can do. So, and I'm sure you people out there would not want this by your house. I am between Augustine Road, now this road he's putting in front of these pole barns, and Ridge Road. I have 3 roads around my house. Would you people want that around your house? But obviously it's too late because zoning passed it. So, and furthermore, my neighbor and I, Janice Monti, have been friends for over 50 years. We no longer speak because of this. Her and I never had a crossword until now. This has ruined over a 50-year friendship, neighbor, and Mr. Beagle doesn't care. Besides ruining the land in the back with animals and birds and other wildlife, he doesn't care how he's destroying it. And I want to know about the water part in the back because there is an aquifer back there, and I want to know how that's going to be protected. So that's my feelings on this whole thing.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Cheryl?
No, I think I spoke my piece. And like I said before, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with the whole situation. And I'm sure you people wouldn't want this around your house. So.
All right. Well, thank you for your comments.
No problem.
All right. So where were we? We were talking about waivers. We're going to vote on the waivers. So can I get a motion to accept the waiver requests?
John, I'll make the motion.
This is Alex. I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, there's your waiver requests. What else do we need to do here?
Guess a motion for what? Conditional preliminary?
Was there anything else on your review, Steve, that we need to talk about?
That's what I'm just looking down quickly now. Recreation land, I assume you're inclined to take a fee instead of dedication of land. That was number 9.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. And it just, maybe we take a second, since the comment did come up about stormwater. Jason, could you explain what stormwater management you're proposing for these 2 additional buildings?
Sure. So township has a stormwater management requirement that has us look at peak rate and volume and takes into account the development and what that does to the runoff. So there's specific criteria that we have to meet. So we came up with a design for stormwater beds. There's one large stormwater bed on the property already that was constructed as part of the original pole barn application. And in addition to that, we're installing 2 additional stormwater beds, one in between the 2 new buildings and one behind the last building. In addition to that, we have kind of a trench along the driveway that keeps any runoff from coming off of the driveway captures that and sends it to the stormwater management area. And believe it or not, we actually got some infiltration here when we did our infiltration testing. So a portion of that water will be infiltrated back into the ground, and the rest will be released slowly over a longer period of time. And we'll be doing everything that we can to preserve the woods along the periphery. There's actually a restriction that was put on by the zoning hearing board from doing any other development in the future without going back to them. So essentially, what you see is the maximum extent of what's going to happen here, apart from, totally doing a different kind of plan at some point in the future. So all the roof drains get collected by these stormwater beds, and, we capture it and hold it and do it in accordance with this.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any other items I'm looking at here? Greg, do you recall if we received anything back from the fire marshal?
On this one,
yeah,
not that I recall.
Okay, so we're still waiting for their comment. I don't anticipate much of a comment, but we're waiting for their comment. Just to clarify, that there's no water and sewer facilities proposed in the building. Is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's not going to be any kind of work. It's just storage in the back, so no facilities in the buildings.
Okay, then you'll need to get either exemption or acknowledgement from DEP that you don't need to do a planning module for the project.
Yep. Yeah, so any kind of approval would be conditioned. I don't anticipate any problems with that for this.
Okay, those were the only other comments that I had in my letter. Everything else is pretty straightforward.
So we're looking for conditional preliminary final.
That's correct.
All right. Planning Commission members comfortable with giving that? If so, can somebody make a motion?
I'll motion for conditional preliminary final approval.
This is Tim. I'll second that.
All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Jason and Mr. Beagle, do you want to be on next week's Board of Supervisors meeting?
I guess that would be up to Jason.
Wednesday. I don't know what Wednesday is offhand.
The 20th.
The 20th, yeah. You could wait till the next month. It doesn't matter. Just offer.
He keeps losing his connection. He's back.
Sorry,
my
internet cut out. Can I let you know tomorrow?
Yes, you can let us know tomorrow.
Okay.
Just let me know tomorrow.
Yeah, and let me know.
I'll let you know from tomorrow.
Report.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Thank you very much, guys.
You got it. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you for your time.
Great.
Cheryl, you have your hand up. Is that something new, or was that from the last time?
That was from the last time.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, moving forward. Next on the agenda is Greentop Road subdivision, and again, I'm going to disclose that I've done business with Sal Lapio Homes, so I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion and pass the gavel on to Alex Ulmer, Vice Chairman.
All right, Chris, thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Do we have someone from Sal Lapio here?
Yes, hi, this is Jeremy Hogan from the Crossroads Group. I'm here on behalf of Sal Lapio. Mike Madzak is also on the call. I think he's dialed in from his phone, so I'll see if he can use his mic here.
Do you want me to present, or would you like to present?
It's up to you, Mr. Lippincott, whichever way you'd rather go. It's a pretty clean review, so it's.
You want me? Okay, I'll cast it.
All right. Thank you. As I said, I'm Jeremy Hogan from the Crossroads Group. We looked at this project a couple times now. We did receive the review letter from Mr. Wynn's office. We made quite a bit of headway through the review letter. Almost everything within the review will comply at this point. There are a couple of things to discuss with the Planning Commission, but the majority of this, outside of waivers and a couple questions for the Planning Commission on bike path and lot line geometry is really will comply. If you prefer, I can go item by item, or I can just sort of hit on my high points and then defer to you all for anything else that you want to discuss.
Steve, if it's all right with you, I think we can let him hit on his high points, and then if there's anything you want to discuss, we can bring that up afterwards.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going off of the engineering review first. It's a 3-page letter. Item number 1 under discussion really is just to clarify and ensure that we got the lot line right between lots 1 and 2. We discussed, if you recall, we had an angular intersection out to the right of way, out to the center line of the road. The ordinance requires that it connect perpendicular. So we made the adjustment to go 100 feet perpendicular and then take the angle back between lots 1 and 2. The reason, again, for the angle is to make sure our on-lot sewer tests remain on the correct lots. I believe this was the intent of our discussion last month, but I just want to ensure that the Planning Commission is okay with this.
Steve, do you have any comment on that?
No, I'm fine with the way it's proposed.
I think that's pretty much exactly what I was thinking last month. Any other
John, same here.
Go ahead, John. Tim?
Yeah, I agree. That's what we're talking about.
This is Mike Matzak. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now you can. All right, I finally got through. I had to do it through a phone.
All right, if it's okay, I'm going to go. The single biggest point of discussion, I think, is the bike trail / cartway widening. That's comment number 2. So we talked about a couple different things at the March meeting. We did add the trail. We had the road widening, the shoulder widening. We had the trail. However, we added 2-foot shoulder widening and then a 3-foot trail immediately adjacent to it. Now, at one point last month, we had talked about, hey, maybe if there's a road widening and shoulder, then a little break in the trees, and then the trail. Planning Commission was discussing maintenance. How would that be maintained? So the Planning Commission also discussed a 2-foot wide shoulder and a 5-foot wide trail. So I'm coming to you today and kind of, I want to circle the wagons on this certainly and make sure we can get a resolution on this. But first, make a proposal that if we could maintain the widths that I have on the plan, which is a 2-foot wide shoulder and a 3-foot wide trail, but then paved everything. So it would be entirely paved. The shoulder would still have your wearing course. Everything would be done. It would be easier to maintain that way, albeit the trail is narrower. It would be a lot easier to maintain through winter maintenance and everything else. I believe the nature of Greentop Road and Catch Basin Road I don't have a concern with safety with the trail width at 3 feet rather than 5 feet because we're at a 25-mile-an-hour speed and a 90-degree bend. We would double stripe a delineation between the shoulder and the trail width. And last, not really least, but last, at least from, I should say, not least from my perspective, the wider the trail, the more tree removal we have, and the more impervious we have, the larger the stormwater is going to get. This entire road drains through our site. It certainly is a factor with what we're doing. 2 feet doesn't seem like a whole lot until you get the DEP calculations and manage a site that doesn't have the greatest infiltration testing like much of the area, but trying to minimize how much impervious we have. So again, I'd like to offer that we maintain the 5-foot total width, but pave it in its entirety. Have a stripe delineation between the 2-foot shoulder and the 3-foot trail. And see what the planning commission, how you all feel about that. Discuss it, and we can work through it together.
Can I say something?
Please.
So in having the 2-foot shoulder and then the trail on the other side of that, the problem that I see is, and that's why we want to pave the whole thing, is we would line stripe it. We would put signs up that it's a pedestrian walkway. It's only 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. If we do a separate trail, when you plow the road, it's going to have snow on it all the time. And through this, there's trees right there. I just see that trail by itself alone is going to deteriorate in no time. In 3 or 4 or 5 years, the blacktop's going to be wiped out. But if it's plowed constantly and it's open, you don't have that issue. And you still have, it's hardly ever going to get used because there's so few people back there. It just makes the road wider then too in itself. So that was kind of our, my thoughts were.
Great, thank you. Steve, do you have any thoughts on a continuous shoulder to trail?
Well, it's not my first choice, but it's not uncommon to do, a quote unquote bike path like that, where it is connected to the road as opposed to, pedestrian sidewalk, which you usually are, have the concern of, the interaction with traffic and wanting to get pedestrians further away from the edge of road. Engineering wise, you can make either one work. It's I understand their concern with additional pavement is it's a stormwater issue, but that's not necessarily the township's first concern. I guess where I wanted to be clear, because I was not at the last meeting, but I have my notes from Kurt that was there, that the township did want a paved, whether it was paved or concrete. I understand, we went the paved route. You wanted a paved surface for this trail along the frontage of the property. Is that correct?
We were discussing that as opposed to saying it was a sidewalk along the front there.
Right.
And the continuation of the trail from the easement coming down from the Huntsberger property too.
Right. Yeah, and they did amend that lot to make that lane wider to have an easement through there, but they're not proposing to construct that easement. And I understand that's again what the township, what you had discussed last time. So that that is accommodated. So we're really down to just what the mechanics of the layout for this trail. Would you prefer a trail that's separated from the road, or would you be comfortable with I'll call it a bike trail layout that would essentially be, a widened shoulder on the road? Yeah.
I mean, from a pedestrian standpoint, it'd be from a safety issue. I would say it would be, have it delineated. Have something in between there from road, to trail. Something. I mean, I get it from the standpoint of applying and see what they're saying, but at the same time, from a safety standpoint, I would say have some type of delineation between there.
Well, yeah, you're not going to get any delineation to stay there. That isn't a hazard. Therein lies the problem, other than line striping.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, just one comment that I have is, if it's a 2 foot wide buffer, if a car's going to go across, that buffer is not going to stop them from going across onto the path. Whether there's blacktop all the way or there's a dirt strip in between the edge of the roadway and the start of the path, if it was a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit road, I'd say no way. But it's not. It's 25 miles an hour, and it's a low traffic road. If a car is going to go off, that 2 foot buffer is not stopping them. That's just my opinion. That's all.
Greg, do you have any thoughts on maintenance with regard to plowing in the trail and the road?
Yeah, when it comes to winter maintenance, if there's not a large buffer between the road and the guys will push the snow on the walking trail. We push it on sidewalks.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a fact. We do that.
Gotcha. If it was all part of the shoulder, basically, would they plow the whole thing and push it up to the grass, or just the road?
They would go to curb. That's their goal, curb to curb.
But if there's no curb, it's just striped.
The theoretical curb to curb, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the edge is blacktop, the edge is blacktop.
Sorry.
So
the whole width.
So we kind of had assumed they would plow the whole paving width. That was the benefit of doing it this way. This is just going to get plowed kind of de facto.
Correct.
It's entirely paved.
I mean that way it would be used more often than if you pile a foot of snow on top of it. It's going to sit there for months to deteriorate it. Whereas if it's plowed from edge of paving to edge of paving, then it's open.
So then the homeowners aren't responsible for that?
No, it's a part of the roadway.
Yes, that's what I thought we were talking about, that it'd be the homeowner's responsibility to maintain that trail being open. That's what I thought we were getting at last time.
Well, that's if we were putting a space in between it. But if it's attached to the public road, I mean, the only thing that's you're just snow plowing to the edge, and then instead of snow plowing onto the trail being back further, it's snow plowing into the wood edge so that it doesn't deteriorate, so that it's clean to use when it does snow. That was our thoughts for doing it this way. Plus, it also, as much as it's going to use, it's also going to give you a wider roadway in that area as well.
But you can't drive.
Well, if you line stripe it, people are still going to drive across it.
Well,
and if somebody's if somebody's in there with a bike, I mean, I guess you could try and bolt down those yellow things, but they would probably get snow plowed out, is what would happen with them.
Yeah, probably the best we could do is those, the milled-in reflectors that are supposed to be plowable. They have, it's like, say on 309 bypass, they have those reflectors down the center line of the two lanes.
They're recessed a little bit, right?
Yeah, you could possibly do that kind of reflector, to give it a little more pronouncement than just a white line.
The only other thing I was thinking would be to do some kind of pattern or dyeing of the asphalt and the bikeway, just so it's visually delineated.
That might look.
Well, I think what we were talking about doing is line striping it hash with a heavy hash, a 1 foot line with a space and with a border along the road edge, so that it does show up as a trail or a path.
I didn't know that.
I know what made sense.
Yeah, I didn't know that we were only talking about 2 foot and then like a 5 foot overall. I thought we were talking about the 14-foot cart width, then the shoulder, then the trail off of that. I didn't know that the 5 foot was encompassing both the shoulder and the trail.
So we talked about a couple different things. We put
That's where I'm confused here. I thought we had a bigger shoulder off of the 14-foot cart width and then the trail. And then that trail would be maintained by the homeowners. That's the impression I was under. I didn't know that we were trying to take a shoulder and a path into a 5-foot.
No, we did discuss a lot of those things. And when we were looking at the maintenance, and we did discuss maintenance being on the homeowners, but with the client and I looking at this, we put this together saying, hey, this would be easier to be plowed all as one, have it continually paved. It'll be stable route rather than having road paving, then down to a dirt shoulder, then back up to a paved trail. We can put the maintenance on the homeowners. I mean, it's going to be there. It's going to be on the homeowners ultimately, but will they really shovel 200 or 300 feet of trail on each property frontage? Or if it's being plowed, it's done for them. Part of it's done in the long-term maintenance, I thought would.
Okay, that comes back to being the township's responsibility, which I'm not so sure that that's really something we want to undertake, right? I'm just going off for the discussion that I remember we had last month. I thought that's where we were at. But
That's kind of what I remember too, Tim.
How does that affect the road drainage? Does the water run off the road, then onto the path, then off the path into the woods?
Correct. Yeah, it all has a similar cross slope off the edge into the woods.
Whereas if you have a 2-foot shoulder, then the water runs off the road into the 2-foot dirt gap underneath the trail, and then again the trail becomes a maintenance issue. Whereas if it's one solid piece of blacktop, it sheds into the swale that's in front of the properties.
So the drainage swale would be beyond the trail at that point.
Correct.
Yeah.
And is that the gap basically between the trail and the ultimate right of way?
Yeah. Yeah, in some locations we have, especially down Catch Basin, we have a swale there. On Greentop, it really sheets into our site. So we have a lot of swales around the houses. A couple culverts we're replacing under Greentop. But it just sheets into lots 1, 5, and 7 across Greentop.
So I guess, I don't want to rehash what was discussed last month, but there's a couple different considerations here. If it were standard improvement in a development, you'd have, a widening curb, a 6-foot grass strip, and a sidewalk. We're out in a rural area here, and apparently that wasn't, we had talked about a more informal sort of look to it and a paved path as opposed to that, subdivision development look. So it's partially in aesthetics of how it will look, partially a maintenance, concern of will it get maintained? Is it more likely to be maintained if it's part of the shoulder? And then partially a safety concern. If you're not comfortable with having the path adjacent to the road, then maybe it should be set back the 5 or 6 feet that it would be under a normal road cross section.
that's more along the lines of what I was thinking of and thought we were discussing last month.
When we talked last month, it was a 2-foot space from the edge of the road to the start of the cart path. We didn't change that. That I know of, that hasn't changed. It was always a 2-foot shoulder and then the start of the path. I mean, if you want the path, the cartway to be the path to be 5, do we do that, Jeremy? Still make it solid blacktop, and instead of making it 3 from the edge of the paving, make it 5?
If the planning commission, we can do that. If the planning commission is okay with that, basically widening what we have, they would still be abutting each other. There wouldn't be a gap, but it'd be a 14-foot wide lane width, including the shoulder, and then a 5-foot wide trail. If the planning commission is accepting of that.
It's not that. I'm not trying to save costs here. I'm trying to make it so that the residents that are there will use it, and it's not covered with snow constantly. If it has snow on it all winter long, they aren't coming out and they aren't shoveling it. And then you get in the fall, you have leaves all over it and twigs. Tim or Steve, the blacktop's going to deteriorate in no time if it isn't plowed off. That's my main concern. And if it was a higher speed limit road, I would say I absolutely agree there. You have to have some kind of buffer, but it's not.
I think from an aesthetic standpoint, it looks kind of strange though, having that 14-foot cart path and then whatever becomes the width of the trail on the shoulder is, I think it's going to be kind of strange looking.
I think, Tim, what it's going to end up looking like is where you have bike lanes sometimes, where it's just cordoned off on the side of the road as a separate lane there. But
yeah, I get it.
What are your thoughts on it?
But it's like, you know, look where we're at out there. You know?
Oh, I hear you.
You know, I mean, it's like not like Center City.
John, did you have some thoughts?
I think my recollection was what Tim was saying before, is I thought that there was the 14-foot wide road, a 2-foot shoulder, some distance of grass separation, then a 5-foot paved walking path. So
right. Yep. That's what I kind of remember.
I agree. That's what I think the discussion last month was. I'm just trying to weigh the merits of having continuous paving from the maintenance standpoint and the longevity of the trail piece out there.
I can certainly see the advantage if you're going to make it essentially a 19-foot wide paved surface from the center of the road to the ultimate edge, and that all that is maintained by the township, and it's just striped off for a bike path, like you said, that there's advantages to doing it that way. And I think based on the location, that might be the simplest solution.
Greg, do you see any issues with the township with regard to that?
Sure, the difference in maintenance versus the property owners maintaining it versus the township maintaining it and painting it. And then there's always the safety concerns.
Gotcha.
And we don't have a situation similar to this elsewhere in the township. I can't think of any.
No, we don't have any in West Rock Hill.
I just think out here, I mean, you're in the middle of the woods, and then you come around this corner and it's going to be this, 19, all of a sudden the road's going to open up. You got all these big striping down the right-hand side or left-hand side, depending on which way you're going. I just think aesthetically, for the people that live there that already are there, I just think that's going to be very strange looking. Looks like a Center City type setup that doesn't fit.
Kind of out of place, yeah. No, I hear you.
Does it also become a deceleration lane for people pulling into their driveways?
Exactly. Yeah. And then, there's safety there. Kids, not paying attention, riding bikes, whatever. And then, you have the opportunity for the car just to drive into that lane. There's nothing there that's why I thought we were talking about the curb, a grass strip, and then the path.
Oh, we did. You're correct. We talked about a grass strip or even trees, and the trees, I think that was out right away. I think they're going to bust up the paving on both.
Yeah,
both sides.
We talked about that, but yeah, it's.
Well, I don't care if we do a 2-foot shoulder and a 5-foot path, but I thought we were always talking about a 2-foot, the 14-foot cartway, a 2-foot piece of grass, and then a 5-foot cart path. And if you want to do it that way, that's fine.
That's not what I was thinking. I say it wasn't my impression that that's what we were talking about. Thought that there was a 2-foot shoulder, then there was going to be a grass area, and then there was going to be the path.
Right.
And aesthetically, I think out there, that's what it should look like at a bare minimum.
So the 2-foot area, what size do you want it to be?
Well, it's a shoulder on the road, so.
No, I mean between that and the path then.
Yeah, I would get mixed up. I think we're getting mixed up a little bit with the nomenclature, and I don't know that we need to call it a shoulder or not, but we're really talking about what are we comfortable with in the separation from the path to the edge of the blacktop.
Right.
Whether that's considered a shoulder or a stabilized shoulder or just all grass, but we could work that out in the details. But I think we need to, just
At one
concentrate on
point-
what separation are we talking about?
Right. Steve, at one point, I think there was discussion of there being the cartway width, then a stabilized shoulder, then a gap, and then the path.
Yeah, well, and not to go into the weeds too much, but the reality of building this is you're gonna grade it all out at the same time and probably end up with a stone base across almost the whole thing, if not the whole thing, just because of the mechanics of building this.
Right.
Paving a 5-foot wide path, unless you have an 8-foot wide truck that has to back up to a paver to pave a 5-foot wide path, so you have to have a wider area. So it'll be more stabilized than you think. That's why I'm saying it's almost irrelevant how it's constructed as much as what the separation is that you are comfortable with, and the aesthetics that it would give you in safety. Whether that's 4 feet, 5-foot separation, I guess there's some room for discussion there.
I'll throw this out. We can narrow the road if you guys want to. We can always narrow that back in.
That's the problem to begin with.
We did. So in our widening, I mean, it is really narrow. It is really narrow. I do get that. Could we, if we had a 14-foot wide cartway, I just need, this is the last issue really I think I have with the design. So if we could do a 14-foot wide cartway, if you wanted a grass strip and then a path, I just need to know what the planning commission is happy with as far as dimensions, and we can make it work on the plan. I think Mike and I can make it work and figure it out. But
what do we have from the center of the road to the property line, the ultimate?
26 feet.
26.
Yeah, so it's designed for like that standard cross section, 14 feet to the curb, 6 foot from the face of curb to the sidewalk, a 4-foot sidewalk, and you're right away. So you have 4 to 6 feet of grass strip, plenty of room that keeps everything within the right of way.
Gotcha.
I would be more comfortable with something like that, both from the standpoint of safety as well as aesthetics, considering the area that it's in.
I think especially the safety piece, because I think it's going to become, you're right, it may not be wonderfully grassed, but it's not going to be paved, and it's going to be a visual deterrent to someone driving up onto that trail.
Yeah, some kind of demarcation between the two. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something there. And I think that more the distance you have there, the better off you'd be.
I'm also thinking about that intersection where now you've got an opportunity for somebody even to cut the corner shorter.
Right. Yeah, somebody's walking on the trail and they cut the corner short. Yep.
So that's, I'm just thinking about drainage now. So you're going to come from basically the center line of the road, and it's still just going to pitch all the way across there. The only difference might be you'd have the asphalt of the trail come up a little bit.
So
it'd pretty much be even, Steve.
It would be even with the grass. I think we can make that work. Yeah, there's not, without getting into curb and controlling all the runoff from the street, that's a whole nother dimension to this. I don't see a major problem with it sheet flowing across, as long as it's graded properly.
What if we did a 4-foot shoulder and a 4-foot path?
4-foot sidewalk
normal
required
sidewalk's 4 foot, right?
Yeah.
So.
But are you still talking paved?
Yes. Yes.
All right. No, I'm just saying. Usually, I don't know if you can find a 4-foot paver to do that.
Well, it's not going to be easy, but we'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
Use a skid steer or something like that.
Yeah. No, I understand. It's just by default, you usually end up talking about 5 foot when you're paving it. But he is corrected. 4 foot is the standard sidewalk width.
Yeah, I don't have a huge opinion one way or the other on that. I'm just thinking it might be actually cheaper to build it as a 5 foot than try to figure out how to get it down to a 4 foot. Jeremy, were you going to say something earlier?
I was still trying to pine for narrower cartway widths. I think if we don't do an improved shoulder, if we can make it grass, stormwater, and I understand Steve's comment, that's not really the township's burden, but it does make my life easier. It's almost a balance from what we have right now. It's very.
Jeremy, when I was talking about a stabilized shoulder, even back in the beginning, what we usually did was just a stone base and still put topsoil and grass on over it. So
I got it.
You would benefit. You wouldn't be penalized for that. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
So we would still have a grass look, but if you drove off onto it, you wouldn't sink 12 inches into the mud. You know, you would only sink 2 or 3, inches into the topsoil. And
I got you. And I calc it all right now as if it's all paved. So if that's what we did, if you guys are okay with 4 and 4, I think it's probably, I understand what you're saying about the constructability, but I think 4 foot's still a little cheaper than 5 foot. If we could do that and the planning commission's okay with that, I can make the adjustment pretty quickly. There's a swale and catch basin I'll have to shift just a little bit, but I think we can maintain. It'll remove a little bit more trees. I think they're still in the right of way or the easement. I don't think that's.
Yeah, if they're in the right of way, you wouldn't be penalized for that either.
Yeah.
So
John, would you be okay with it? I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
You're saying, 14-foot cartway, 4 foot
grass,
stabilized but grass area, and then a 4 foot path?
Yeah, if that's okay. If that works for you all.
I'm okay with that.
It's better.
Yeah, I'm okay with that as well.
Is there curbing?
No, there's no curbing out here. And we don't really want, from stormwater management, I don't really want curbing out here. I don't think it meets the aesthetic of the neighborhood. Everything sheets into the site. Like I said, it comes from a roadside swell and catch basin, which we're going to extend as part of this design.
Alrighty.
If we beat that one up enough, let's go on to what else is left here.
Are we all good? Is it okay for me to assume we're good? So I'll make that last revision to the plan.
14, 4, and 4.
14, 4, and 4. You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I won't hold it
Anything
against you,
else,
Mike, if
Jeremy?
you end up building 5 feet in the end anyway.
Well, what my biggest concern is just the amount of trees that we have to take down, and then how far we're pushing onto the property.
Yeah, understood.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. And then
Okay,
I
did you have
still
anything
think
else, Jeremy?
Sorry, say that again, Steve.
Did you have other items on this?
I have a couple quick waiver requests. I did want to ask, I had one of your comment number 5.
Excuse me.
Comment number 5, we need to get the fire marshal's comments back. I did not see them. I don't know if you, Mr. Lippincott, if you got anything back.
I'll take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we sent it to him again, but I don't recall.
I get that they're busy. It's usually the lingering item for us to get those in right before recording sometimes. So if we could get it, that would be one thing we have to handle. Everything else will comply. Some of the outside agency approvals, we're in process with our MPDS permit. The modules are in process. I think everything is working. We're very close to the end as far as hard design here. We're down to chasing permits. So the last thing for the township, I do have 4 waiver requests. We discussed these at length. There was more last month, and we kind of whittled them down. So if I can just refer to, I don't know if you have my waiver request letter in front of you.
Yes, we do.
March 15th. March 15th, yeah. So street improvements, I it's a partial waiver request to pretty much do what we're proposing to do on the plan. I'll update this waiver request letter to reflect our discussion on the 4-foot grass strip and the 4-foot bike trail.
So the only waiver really is curb.
It's really curbing. Yeah.
Yep.
The next 3 waivers are all in the stormwater ordinance. So the first one is BMP plantings. There are planting requirements from the township perspective. There are also planting requirements from DEP's perspective. We're trying to use DEP's plantings for the BMPs to take transpiration credits because we don't have groundwater. We don't have good groundwater infiltration rates here. I believe we added on the plan a breakdown. I think the engineer made a note of it as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and most of these BMPs are sort of butted up against the woods, right? The woods are remaining around.
They're all in the woods, yeah. So the normal basin plantings to buffer it from everybody, you already have that because you're in the woods. But
right. So what we would normally plant as perimeter plantings around the buffer yard are more or less being replaced with the existing woodland around it.
Yeah, but it is still a partial waiver request.
Sure.
The next 2 I'm going to bundle together, 2 different components of storm sewer piping and material. We're asking if we can allow, so the ordinance requires RCP pipe, which we will do everywhere within the township right away, but we're asking if we can use HDPE within the internal components of the site. So our BMPs, our drainage pipes, can we use HDPE? That's really the question. I think we discussed it last month. At the time, and Steve, if you want to weigh in, your other, I forget your other compatriot's name. Yeah. Don't want to put his words in your mouth, but it's not a lot of storm sewer on the internal of the site.
No, and we have, or the township has always required RCP in public rights of way, but on privately owned lots, we have on other projects allowed HDPE.
And you okay with the 15-inch sizing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The 15-inch size is the last waiver request. Can we use that in certain areas?
Yeah, you have the design calculations to support that. I'm fine. We use 18 mostly for maintenance. It just clogs less and easier to open up if we need to. So if this is privately owned pipe, that's no longer our concern.
Steve, one question on the landscape planting buffers. Are those typically intended for like larger basins? I mean, these almost seems like they're more like rain gardens than.
Yeah, we don't. Our ordinance now doesn't differentiate. So yes, they were originally developed for larger basins, but lacking any other standard, we apply them to any basin.
Okay.
So yeah, they are smaller. They are putting, scale appropriate plantings around the basin, and then it's wooded around the outside of it.
Around the perimeter of that.
Yeah.
Do we need to wait for a revised waiver request?
What's revised? Oh, because you're still waiving curb.
Right. So, and then there wouldn't be anything else there. So it'd just be for the curb waiver request. It really doesn't matter about the 5 foot that's in the letter.
Yeah, you're not waiving it, so I don't see that as a problem.
Okay.
He could correct it if he wants to later, but
I'll correct it for the board, but I agree. It's just the curbing. There's a partial waiver request.
Yeah,
All
I think you'd
then
be
I
safe.
think we're looking for a motion on the waiver request at this point.
Are we waiting on a revised plan to come back to show the shoulder and the?
Well, I'd like to ask the waiver request, certainly if we could have action on that, but also ask for preliminary conditional approval based on what we discussed here. There isn't much else to do with the plan. It's the planning commission.
Yeah, so if they're asking just for preliminary approval because they still need to get planning modules and things, you will see it as a final plan. So you'll see all those final changes on it.
Okay.
If you're comfortable with that approach.
So what do we need, a motion for the
waivers at this
waivers?
point?
I'll make said motion.
John, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, and then I guess we'll look for a motion on a conditional preliminary plan approval.
John, I'll make the motion.
It's Tim, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that'd be it. That's I think gets us to the point where we're good until they get their outside agency approvals and we get that revised plan with the 14.4 and 4.
We'll get working on that. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Thank you, guys.
Make the same offer to you if you want to be on the Board of Supervisors meeting next Wednesday.
Let me talk to Mike and I'll get the answer back to Greg. I have, I think, 2 meetings on Wednesday. So let me see if they're not all Zoom. I used to be able to do that. But let me see.
Not a problem. We're not forcing you. I'm just offering.
Clone yourself. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right, take care. Yeah, bye.
And a gavel back to you, Chris.
All right, thank you. Okay, so moving forward, we're going to go on to old business. The first item in old business was the cul-de-sac length and emergency access discussion. Last month, we had thrown together some numbers for standards. Steve, did you get a chance to look at that stuff?
Well, maybe I was misunderstood, but I thought Alex was going to give me some more information or something.
You know what? I think maybe I was supposed to, and I dropped the ball on that.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't we give you that assignment, Alex?
Yeah, what the heck?
Come on.
Yeah, I'm
Why'd you
slacking.
drop the ball? Because then I don't have to take the blame for it.
Yeah, right. Do you remember?
Yeah,
what
I
we
did
had-
not look at it myself, quite honestly.
Do you
I
have
have the notes, but that's all.
Alex? Do you have?
Yeah, I'm looking for my notes on that as well, but I think it was kind of based off of what we had talked about with regard to being, I think, what the standard was, and then if you, I wish I could find my tablet.
Well, you know what? I have my notes here, so let me
Okay.
tell you what I
Oh, I
was
got
given
it.
to me. So it was the paved emergency access, the condition to allow for higher density in areas where there's public water and sewer.
Right.
A detailed set of standards, we knew that, and like those were really the main items.
Right, and I think we had something in there for age restricted, where that was a little more protective.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, shorter distance for age restricted community. I do see that note here now.
Could always go back and rewatch the video from last month.
I'll find it eventually.
Well, it's in the minutes from last month. It's a single family
Yeah.
dwellings, the 800-foot length with 12 units, with public water 1,000-foot length with 16 units. The townhouses was 600-foot with 24 units, with public water 800-foot with 30 units, and the age restricted was a 600-foot length with 12 units, with public water 600-foot length with 16 units.
Do we have anything considering emergency access then? I thought we had numbers with that as well, but maybe we did not.
I think we just said about having emergency access.
Right, and it had to be paved, I think.
But we didn't have any extended length.
With an emergency access? No.
Yeah.
I think that
Well-
may be tough to achieve depending on lot configurations and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, I understood it to be if someone was seeking a waiver of any of the requirements, that emergency access would be required.
Right.
Right.
Now, that could be not length, but number of units, or any combination of requirements.
Right. So we stick to our guns on these. If we're comfortable with these standards, we stick to our guns with them unless they can provide a standardized emergency access exit. And then it becomes discretionary on the length and the number of homes from there. Does that make sense?
I think so. John, does that address your concern about consistency between projects?
Yeah, I still get jittery when I hear the term discretionary.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but I understand.
I get it. And what's
it
going
is.
to happen, no matter, I mean, it's in the Saldo, so no matter what you do, however hard you try to standardize it, they're going to ask for waivers at some point.
Right. I'm just thinking about some of the ones we've seen where, could you just extend the cul-de-sac to the property or put a stabilized trail into the next development over, versus like the one where we were going to use the existing house's driveway back out.
Right.
Where it was kind of winding through the woods and it was a pretty long thing, say, versus the fairly short one over there by Grandview, where the plating place was, where it's like
Right,
maybe
where Gate Properties is building.
yeah, where it's just that short run from that driveway into the Avenue A or whatever they called it there.
Right.
So I think it's going to depend on where you could make your connection for that emergency access. I think is really what's going to dictate where you could get that paved emergency access.
So again, do we want to try to standardize that? Or is it just going to be discretionary and we're back? I think we've got it cleaned up somewhat to make it a little more simple for developers to know what we're after. But, as soon as we add that emergency access in, it's becoming discretionary again, unless we throw some hard numbers at it somehow or standardize it.
Well, I think what we can do is we can provide some wording on what we mean by emergency access.
Yeah, I think you put a standard on that. Does it
Right.
have to be 15-foot wide, 16-foot wide, paved, access to a public road, access to, XYZ,
Right.
Right.
access not exceeding, you don't want a 3,000-foot emergency access either. Like,
Right. So we got to put a number there somehow.
Alex was just
On the
saying.
length. Yeah.
But would you handle that in this though? Because then you're kind of saying like, well, yeah, this is what it is. But if you're going to ask for a waiver, you're going to have to put this in. Or do we just address emergency access, somewhere else is like, hey, if you ever build an emergency access in the township, it's got to be this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you do kind of lead them right to what you don't want them to
like
do.
you're saying,
Right.
okay, yeah, we're not giving you any waivers, but if you ask for waivers, you got to do this, right? So does that suddenly become something where can we in say roadway definitions have a definition of an emergency
Or just a definition for emergency access.
Right. Well, so, yeah, but I don't know. You want to put it in the cul-de-sac wording.
No, I'd say just in the definition section.
Yeah, like a definition of an emergency access road in the township. Like if you build an emergency access road in the township, it's got to be this.
Right.
And then we can refer back to that part of the ordinance in any kind of waiver discussion with regard to emergency access on a waiver on a cul-de-sac.
Right.
Right.
It's the only place we're going to look for an emergency access, most likely.
Well,
Yeah, we've done them on commercial
Yeah,
property.
commercial. I mean, yeah, you got like the hospital and stuff like that. If you have an emergency access, because they had that in the back there, didn't they?
Right. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we've used it a few places.
So that way you would have a definition for emergency access.
Right. Any other thoughts?
I think it's a lot better and more spelled out than it was previously.
Right.
Yeah.
So for emergency access, we want what, 15 or 16 feet?
Sure.
16 is a nice round number.
16 or 15, Steve?
16.
16? Okay. So it's a minimum 16 foot wide. Maintained year round. Do we want to put a maximum length on it?
I think that's kind of tough, right?
Well, I think Steve was just saying, yeah, but we didn't want it to be like 3,000 feet long, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but what's the right numbers? Yeah, we'll argue that for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
I mean, the only other thing I could think is to say, you know, with the most direct route possible to another entrance.
To safety.
I would think they would want to do that regardless, because it'd be the depending on the cheapest, depending on whatever right of ways they might need to acquire.
You could do it like not to be longer than 1.5 times the cul-de-sac length.
Won't put cul-de-sac in there.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we do it, we walk ourselves right back into that.
Yeah.
Right.
Giving them a number to shoot for to get the extra lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we don't put a maximum length on it.
Well, but if you did, you said, all right, 500 feet. And if it has to be longer than 500 feet, then it has to be a road.
Yeah, really, at that point, if you can make it access, you know, emergency access road 500 feet long, then you probably don't need a cul-de-sac, right?
Right. Looping out, yeah.
I was trying to think of going at it maybe a little different way, saying with the most direct access possible to, I don't know if we want to say a public road or public or private road, or I don't know, that I'm just thinking about that. Is it TH Properties over there with the, their access goes out to that driveway that goes back out to Lawn then.
Yeah, they're not out to a private or a public road with their.
Right. Does that driveway really count as a private road?
Well, I mean, I looked at it as the whole thing is their emergency access. That driveway is part of their emergency access.
Okay.
Right. Did you say township to a township approved road?
I was just wondering if that was a private road because it gave access back to Weisel's as well.
No, it was never on any maps as a private road.
Okay.
So theoretically, that's a emergency access all the way out to Lawn.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we say public road or public or private road? Because I guess if it went out, like, is what is that other one? Hidden
Meadows.
Hidden Meadows, is that a private road?
That's private, yeah.
Yes, that is.
Well, I guess you could say private road because we have a definition of private road, I think, in our ordinance.
Do roads have any kind of generic classifications associated with them that describe construction, class 1, class 2, something?
No, we have local collector, major and minor collectors, materials. It's basically not necessarily construction as much as it is traffic volume.
But the township does have standards for road construction, correct?
Right. And we say, oh, well, a new private road has to be built to public road standards. That was the whole argument we had with THP. They didn't want to use our right-of-way widths and other things because it was a private road.
Maybe we just, instead of worrying about construction standards, John, we just say suitable to support emergency vehicles.
Well, that goes back to my thing about, like, even if it's a private road, the township has to approve the private road, right? So if you say to a township approved road, that way you're not going to somebody's driveway or something else, right? Wouldn't that cover both private and public roads if it's a township approved road?
I'll defer to Steve on that one.
Yeah.
Unless Chris knows.
Yeah, yes and no. I think it gets you most of the way there. Just like we said with everything else, it's somebody could always ask for a waiver of it. So we have a definition of a street, road, or highway in the subdivision ordinance. And any other ways used or intended to be used for vehicular traffic, whether public or private, which are identified on the legally adopted township street or highway plan or the official map.
I think that's what we want.
Yeah, so I think if you said public or private street, that would be fine. Would be a recognized street.
Okay, and then with regard to construction, do you think just suitable for emergency vehicles, or constructed suitable for emergency vehicles?
Yeah, I think you want to say paved access is suitable for emergency vehicles. Yeah. Because you could build a stone road that could support emergency vehicles, so you want to say paved.
All right, so right now I've got a minimum of 16 feet wide, year-round maintenance, paved access suitable for emergency vehicles with the most direct access possible to a public or private street. As our definition for emergency access.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I mean, that sounds good to me. Might come up with something as after the meeting's over, but I think we're on the right track for sure.
Yeah.
Are we all comfortable with the lengths that we had come up with last meeting? Between the single family and the townhouse and age restricted? I guess we were kind of waiting for input from you, Steve, on that stuff.
Yeah, what do you think on that, Steve?
So I just printed the minutes. I'm looking at it now. So it was.
It's I think the second to
800
last
feet
page.
with 12 units, 1,000 feet with 16 units with public water. Townhouses, 600 feet with 24. Age restricted. It's fine with me. It's, as we discussed before, to some degree, it's arbitrary. We're in the ballpark of what all other, that chart I had done with, most of the other surrounding townships.
Right.
That 5, 6, to 800 feet is sort of the middle of the pack. And there's a couple thousand feet and less, but so no, I'm fine with what you had listed. Now, now that I say that, I think the townhouses, I don't know that we need to have two, because you're really not going to have townhouses if you don't have public water. And maybe you just change that to multifamily, you know, just a more generic,
Sure.
any kind of towns, twins,
Right.
kind of unit, you know, anything other than single family.
Yeah, multi-unit. That would probably be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like I said, you're really not going to get them without public water, so
Right.
it's sort of not an issue.
I guess, I mean, I was just shooting at the hip when I kind of came up with these, or shooting from the hip, kind of just based on starting with 800 feet and 12 units. Is it possible to get 30 units and 30 multifamily units within 600 or within 800 feet, or 24 within 60?
I guess that would be the question, right, as to what you're looking at from a standpoint of street frontage on those lots.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever
So
our townhouses are.
Maybe just take a
22,
look at
24.
that and see if it's reasonable.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's where we got the 800 and the 12 from, but I just wasn't sure once I started working off of those numbers if that was actually even doable.
Well, you're making an assumption that all the houses are side by side. I mean, they could be off of cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, when
Do
you
we
start
allow a
talking
cul-de-sac off a cul-de-sac?
well, when you start talking multifamily or fourplexes or something, you could have little parking area, you know, in
Right.
between two multiplex units, and it's not, you know, it's just a parking lot.
Gotcha.
But you could have multiple of those parking lots off of X.
Off of one road.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you just went straight up 24-foot wide townhouse units, you'd get 30 of them on a 800-foot street. So yeah, you're probably in the ballpark there.
Okay.
All right. Where do we want to go from here?
I mean, I could try again, put it into like a Word document and just, you know, I think ultimately the thought is it's just going to be a collection of these things until we have enough to really amend the ordinance accordingly.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't finalize it. Yeah, if you would just wanted to clean up, you know, kind of your notes and thoughts and give me that, Alex, I could change that into, you know, ordinance type
Ordinance language.
format.
Okay.
Yeah. So then you're not struggling with trying to figure out what sections and it fits in and all that stuff. But
Gotcha. Do we
give me
need
an
to run it
outline.
past Mary at some point too, or do we get into the format first and then worry about that?
We'll keep her in the dark for now. I think we're better off if we're going to go with a bunch of changes to give it to her at
Yeah,
one
all
time.
at once, right?
Everyone.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think this is a questionable legal thing that we're talking about. So I don't think we need upfront advice on it,
Gotcha.
unless Greg does. No. Mary has enough other things to do, according to Greg.
All right.
As
Well,
do
we'll
I.
leave that up to you two,
Okay.
and we'll see how things shake out. You guys want any more discussion on this, or you want to move forward?
Hal raised his hand.
Oh, Hal. Go ahead, Hal. Turn on your mic.
There we go. I just wanted to bring up occasionally, for real estate, we often run into the situation where you have the construction of the building, which can be a single building, a semi-detached or a twin, and then attached. And then you have different single family, duplex, then multifamily within those buildings. So you may want to also think through of, okay, is this a single building which is separate, but it's got 4 apartments in it versus, okay, is this a 1-family row house right next to a 1-family row house? And then beside that is a 4-unit row house. So sometimes you run into that single family versus multifamily is the use. Then you have the construction, which is this detached? Is it semi-detached or a twin, or is it a row house? Because that often gets argued about between inspectors and appraisers and realtors. Just bringing that up, that you run into that confusion.
Sure, that understood. And I think, when we write this up formally, the number of units would be keyed to dwelling units, not necessarily the type. And then other than single family, and that way we, it wouldn't. So it can't be construed as one townhouse block would be, one building. That's what I think you're saying, right, Hal?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We definitely want to key it to dwelling units, not structures per se.
Right.
Yeah. We'll do that.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on the cul-de-sac? All right. Let's move on to the discussion on the comp plan initiatives. John, I know you had been taking the lead on this, so why don't you take it now?
Yeah, what I thought I would do is, so I broke up the original list. I sent a couple to the Park and Rec, and I didn't hear back from them directly, although at last month's supervisors meeting, Dave Rice,
yes,
mentioned that their group had started to look at them. So I'll assume that I haven't heard anything back. So I'll assume no news is no news from there. I sent a group of the items also to the Conservation Committee, and I haven't heard anything back from them. I'll follow up with them again just to get an acknowledgement of receipt, if nothing else at this point. So for the remainder of the items, what I thought I would do is I would try to go through the list and pick them off one at a time, starting with the easiest ones, and bring them through for discussion. Some of them will be fairly straightforward. So if we're going to time tonight, I sent one out earlier today, which is number 14 for A&T Subaru. I'm sorry, A&T Chevrolet, the Subaru dealers in Hilltown. And it on a monthly basis, I would go through and pick one for discussion. Some of them might not require a lot of discussion. Some of them I think are going to require quite a bit of discussion, and we'll just play it by ear, see how we move along. If that approach is okay with everybody.
Seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I was looking at something after you had sent that thing about the A&T Subaru. Like, just a quick question would be, like that whole corridor up Old Bethlehem Pike, and that had been rezoned a few years back with planned commercial and all that type of thing. But like maybe there's a couple of spots a little further up Bethlehem Pike that might want to take a look at too, just from the standpoint of commercial zoning right on Old Bethlehem Pike. Like, would we want to do that like as a
just for like the corridor there?
Yeah, and when I say that, if you look further up, like kind of like right across from Faith Christian Academy, like it kind of comes down around the corner from from Comcast building there. There's a couple properties there that are PC, and then there's a couple down further that aren't, heading down to the Sellersville border. Just thought maybe for consistency's sake, that section might be PC on, on the western side of Old Bethlehem Pike as well. Like just little areas like that. And I'll take a look at the whole corridor and see if there's stuff we can clean up potentially.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, it's right. It's just like Ridge Road down to I forget what the name. Air Avenue comes over from Washington Avenue.
Yeah,
it's the township boundary.
Yeah, right. That's the boundary. Yeah, I just trying to remember the name of the road, but anyway, just like that little section there, like just a couple of properties right there in the corner that might make sense to make them PC all the way down to the Sellersville border.
Okay.
I wonder why we didn't do that.
Well, yeah, because I thought it was like two properties off on each side. You know what I mean? Like two properties back. Like if you go further up towards like Forest Road and everything, it was like two properties were zoned. All actually back to Mill Road, actually in that area. But yeah, that whole corner there. I mean, if you think about it, like future, eventually that's a corner, right? I mean, that's like a major intersection corner 50 years from now. So why that wouldn't be? Comcast is there, the police department's there, moving. You would have that whole area as a place for whatever, gas station, Wawa, Royal Farms, whatever.
Royal Farm.
Well, I'm just They say
and we actually already have sewer, pretty much sewer and water there and already.
Right.
As you
Yeah, I
go
mean,
south
yeah.
of Ridge Road. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's just the southern part there. So just like I was just saying, just areas like that, make sure that that whole corridor is kind of cleaned up and, you know, kind of happy.
Okay.
And then a quick question while we're still on this and kind of relates to some of the stuff we had tonight. Is there any reason that we can't take a look at making the minimum lot size in the RC and the RA bigger so that we eliminate some of these inappropriate subdivisions that come in front of us? Is there a problem with that? Is there a law?
How big were you thinking?
Well, it's like 1.8 right now, right?
Right.
So I don't know, like 4?
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
1.8 is kind of the sweet spot of what
Can we go bigger?
you could get away with.
Yeah, we went through this when we did the.
Yeah, there was some state court rulings and things on.
Yeah.
On
Is there a minimum size?
lot size? Well, 1.8 is about what was accepted as the maximum size that you can require.
But it doesn't take into account like our township. I mean, we're West Rock Hill. There's it's named West Rock Hill. We don't have good soils. We keep getting this thing they talked about today where they don't have good groundwater infiltration rates. So therefore, we're going to put these BMPs in and stuff and these tiny little detention bases that become ugly. And
mosquito breeders.
What's that?
Mosquito breeders.
Yeah, I mean, and that, quite honestly, I look at it every day when I drive it. It's ugly, you know? And I mean, if the ground can't take this runoff from the impervious surface and stuff like that, like why should we allow these, like to put this stuff in? That's what I just said. There's some way we can eliminate it. I just think they're inappropriate. So it's one we just had on Green Top Road. I mean, 7 houses out there. I mean, that's not really appropriate for that part of the township. That's my concern. I mean, and the residents in the areas of the township think the same thing, but yet ordinances allow these guys to come in here and do this.
I think we were prompted by our legal department to drop the minimum or maximum.
Well, but so we have to do it. Let me get this straight. We have to do a curative amendment to give a VC and a VR for densities to allow developers to come in so they don't go to the other places in the township, but yet we can't then restrict the other places in the township that we want to conserve, like agriculture and conservation, right? So we're like, isn't there some kind of trade-off there? Like we gave you your curative amendment, we gave you your VC and your VR, so stay out of where we don't want you, which is the conservation areas.
Unfortunately, not really. But this one I would punt to Mary if you want to approach that question again, and maybe there's some new some new law out there. I don't know of it, but that was a big topic several years ago, maybe even a decade ago, when there was a bunch of lawsuits about overly large lot sizes.
Yeah, when we did the zoning review, that was. Gosh.
Yeah, that was probably right around
2008, something like that.
Yeah.
Hal, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
If I can chime in, it's basically considered to be a balancing. A lot of the courts have now said, if you have a good reason for having lot sizes, like, okay, you're going to need 4 acres to have spray irrigation because you can't flush your toilet without having it go someplace. But you have to be able to sort of tie it to, there's a reason why we're doing this rather than just, we don't want to have this particular size. I mean, they've upheld, on the high side, you get out by Lancaster, and for agricultural areas, they've upheld 10-acre minimum lot size because that's what you need to have an active farm, and that's what they're really concerned about for prime ag soils. Okay, but you have to be able to tie it with a good enough explanation of we're doing this because in this area, this is what happens. And usually you run into that with, okay, well, you've got a lot, but if you don't have public water, public sewer, you're going to barely be able to get water and sewer or a perk. I think that was like Heckler's lot on the zigzag, on the chicane of Ridge Valley Road, where they just kept putting topsoil in for like, what, 15
right. Well, now that's in the VC, so that's but at the time that went in, that was an inappropriate development. Okay, that shouldn't have really gone there. There's one down across the street from me, Kratz's. I mean, quite honestly, it is what it is. It's there, but you know, it's just not appropriate, right? And this one up in Green Top Road, it's just not really appropriate. So if we had some mechanism to be able to stymie some of this stuff, I just thought it would be something we should talk about.
The other thing, and I don't know that it's going to address the problem that you're bringing up, Tim, is I know they have like smart development is what they call it, I think, or something like that, where you basically give the guy a bigger or a better density, but he's got to keep all the property around it open or green space or something like that. So, you know, you basically had a cluster in the center of the property and then the outside stays undeveloped.
Well, I don't know that that's what I'm going for.
Gotcha. I was just thinking that way it doesn't impact the neighbors as much.
I hear you. Yeah.
The one other thing, and that's also not necessarily popular in a lot of places, is the transfer development rights, where you could have an area of the township that is sort of the donor area. So if you restricted, say, this lot, the Green Top lot, to one house, you could then take the 5 or 6 other houses that you could have built on that and increase your density in the village area and get an extra 6 units or something. That's been used sporadically. Doesn't always go over well because the donor area that's getting the new units doesn't always want, you know, the neighbors there don't always want, you know, 10 or 12 extra units because they're moved from a rural part of the township. But it's a way to keep, you know, rural areas more rural, but you have to accept the density in the where you're moving it to.
And I realize too, there's property owner rights issues too. I mean, you know, you have to be somewhat reasonable, but I'm just saying, you know, it's something more than the 1.8 to discourage some of this stuff that, you know, that's coming in front of us here recently. I mean, we already have these places in the township where it can be developed and stuff like that. Like, keep the developments there, you know, keep that stuff, the subdivisions down there. So just something to think about.
All right. So, John, you had some actions to talk about tonight?
Well, the only one that I had prepared for tonight was the one for A&T Chevrolet.
Okay.
And I sent out a slide. I don't know whether Greg has access to that or not.
I have it.
But on that you know, that clears one of the specific items, and I'll take Tim's feedback about looking further for other opportunities to do potential zoning changes. But the one where there's a sliver of the A&T Chevrolet property that resides within our township that currently is, believe it or not, in the suburban residential district,
right?
Because I think it's right across the street from the campground there. So the action item was to move that to PC from suburban residential. I don't know what the mechanics of how to do that is, but if I get everybody's agreement that, yeah, we want to go ahead and do that, then I'll work with Greg to figure out what the mechanics of making that happen, as well as keeping in mind that if we make other changes, we don't want to do them one at a time. We'll collect them and do one mass update. But
right.
Zoning map changes are slightly more complicated than just the zoning ordinance change, because you have to do notifications to all the affected property owners and whatnot. So yeah, definitely we'd want to aggregate that and go through that process one time.
Right.
Yeah, I think if we're doing that as a collective of a bunch of things that didn't quite fit that we're fixing, it kind of eliminates worries about spot zoning.
Yeah, well, and you know, what we're talking about is, you know, the properties next door to it are zoned that. So
yes,
we're just expanding some existing things. We're not just plopping a PC in the middle of the RC district.
Right.
Right.
This should have been done years ago. We're saying
Yeah, I don't know how we all missed it the last time we updated the map.
Yeah.
We did.
But yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward and trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay.
Yep, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So that was all I had on the comprehensive plan action items for tonight.
Okay, good. No, but thank you for doing that, John. Just kidding.
I can't believe Andy went on vacation and passed up on this.
He could have zoomed into the meeting.
That's true.
Yeah, right. He's in Utah. Any other discussion on the comp plan initiatives? Hearing none, we'll move forward. Is there any other old business? There's nothing on the agenda. I don't have anything. Move on to new business. I have no new business. There was nothing, no actions needed. Or was there something on there?
No, that's an errand that forgot to get deleted.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was taken care of.
Yeah, it was. And they just resubmitted a plan. So we anticipate that they will be back next month. I guess they mentioned to Greg, maybe if all their reviews don't come in, they might take themselves off the agenda. But for now, they're penciled in. The same with this is Veris warehouse.
Oh, okay.
On Meeting House. And then I might as well break the bad news to you now. We got another sketch plan for a warehouse. If you're familiar with the ag field between North American Drager and PP&L's facility there on Quarry Road, they're proposing a roughly 360,000 square foot warehouse on that property. So that sketch plan will be, that's penciled in on your next agenda also.
Is there any residential properties adjacent to that?
Well, the
Yes.
Lutheran home.
Yeah,
It's also across the street. There's the houses on State Road there.
Road.
Yeah, across
There's
State
a couple.
Road.
There's a couple of houses.
But
One
this
or
is up.
two.
This is up behind the PP&L, between PP&L and Dragon.
Right.
Yeah,
On the west
yeah.
side of. Yeah.
On the east side, there is a couple houses there on State Road.
Is there? Okay.
I think so.
On State.
On State,
On
yeah,
State
nearby.
Road, yeah.
What is that? Quarry Road that comes up there?
Yeah,
Quarry
yeah.
and
The
State.
facility has access only to Quarry Road,
Quarry Road, right?
but it like tucks in behind the Lutheran home
Yeah.
apartment building and the singles that they built years ago. It'd be, essentially extends all the way to Landis Supermarket property from Quarry Road over to Landis Supermarket property.
Was there any notable changes on the plan from Veris?
I didn't even look at it yet. It just came in the last couple of days. I just picked it up. I think it's really dwindling down to, the discussions on road improvements and intersection improvements.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other new business? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Any
There is
public
no public comment.
Yeah, I think we ran out of public.
Yeah.
Oh, well. We kept them up too late. All right. Well, hearing no public comment, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
This
I
is
will make
Alex.
that
I so motion.
I'll second.
All right. So Alex made it and John seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Yep.
You do, and happy Easter.
Happy
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, do you want your answer?
What's that?
Your answer, what you asked me right before it started. I stopped recording.
The fire.
Yeah, it was an alarm. There was a problem with the AC machines. It smelled like smoke, but there was no fire. There was just a problem with the AC machines.
So the guy I was talking to didn't see smoke. Maybe he smelled it.
there was a smell of smoke, but there was no fire.
Well, he was driving across Ridge Road.
All right. Now an alarm was pulled because a staff member smelled the smoke.
Okay. Good. So there was no damage or anything. Nobody got hurt.
No damage. No nothing.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
All right.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good
See
night.
ya. Thanks.
See ya.